If you've ever worked the graveyard shift, you know the feeling. The world is asleep, time moves like molasses, and the isolation starts to play tricks on your mind. I used to think I had the easiest job in the world, working the front desk at a rundown motel right off a lonely stretch of the Appalachian highway. But what happened on a Tuesday night in November changed me forever. I quit the next morning.
It was around 2:30 a.m.
A massive storm had knocked out the streetlights on the main road, so our motel was surrounded by pitch-black woods. I was sitting behind the bulletproof glass of the reception desk, trying to stay awake by watching the static-filled security camera monitor. We only had 4 cameras, one for the lobby, one for the parking lot, and 2 covering the long exterior hallways. The front door swung open. A man walked in, absolutely drenched from the rain. He was tall, wearing a cheap, oversized suit that hung off his thin frame like a scarecrow. But it wasn't his clothes that bothered me, it was his face. It was completely void of expression, and his eyes, they were wide open, unblinking, just staring a hole right through the glass. I slid the registration clipboard through the gap under the glass. "We need a room for the night?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just slowly lifted a pale, trembling hand and pointed to the motel map on the counter. He was pointing to room Shira, the very last room at the end of the property, completely isolated by the tree. He paid in cash, took the key, and walked out back into the storm without saying a single word. Jeans an hour went by. My gut was telling me something was terribly wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling of those unblinking eyes. I glanced up at the security monitor to check camera number 4, the one pointing right
at room 12.
The door was shut, but as I watched the grainy black and white feed, something moved in the shadows near the edge of the woods. It was him, the man in the suit. He wasn't inside his room. He was standing out in the freezing rain, completely still, facing the wall of room
12.
He just stood there for 10 agonizing minutes, and then very slowly, he turned his head. He looked directly into the security camera. Even through the low-quality feed, I could see that same wide-eyed, horrific stare. But this time, he was smiling, a massive, unnatural grin, and then he started walking, not toward his room, toward the camera, toward the main office. I watched him cross the parking lot on camera too. He was walking with this strange, jagged limp, but he was moving fast. I grabbed the phone to dial
911.
My hands shaking uncontrollably. I heard the operator pick up, but before I could speak, the power went out. Total darkness. The monitors died. The lights died. I dropped the phone and backed away from the glass counter, hiding behind the filing cabinets in the back office. I held my breath. He was in the lobby. I could hear his wet hands sliding against the bulletproof glass. He was tapping on it with his fingernails, and then I heard his voice. It didn't sound human. It was raspy like grinding stones, he whispered. I know you're back there, Kostrel." Then the heavy metal handle of the security door started to rattle violently. Danged. Suddenly, the blazing blue and red lights of a state trooper's cruiser swept across the parking lot. The rattling at the door instantly stopped. By the time the officer came inside with his flashlight, the man was completely gone. Plants. But when the officer shined his light on the security door, there were deep, jagged scratch marks gouged into the metal frame. The police searched the woods, but never found him. Room chart was completely untouched. I still have nightmares about that unblinking smile. If you ever find yourself at a lonely motel in the middle of nowhere, make sure your door is locked.